What's up guys, it's Graphic Phoenix back with another video today, and today, as you can see behind me, today is a very special episode that I have been waiting to make for a very long time, and this is how to set up your Biopod Terra with a bioactive setup for a leopard gecko. So as you guys know, I've been wanting to upgrade Striker for a long time to a more bioactive setup, and Biopod came through with their Terra model. Full disclosure, I do work for Biopod. This is going to be a video scaping and setting up the Biopod Terra. First, I want to start off with a little backstory about me and Biopod as a company. Biopod is a company that started as a Kickstarter about a year and a half ago, and I was one of the very first backers. If you go back to up there, I think is where the link will be. I'll leave a link on the very first time that I ever talked with Jared at Biopod, and that was at a Calgary reptile show, and he was highlighting the prototype model. Now after the Kickstarter launched, I was actually at work, and I got my buddy to purchase my Biopod for me, and we didn't realize that you could only order one, so I had to go on my phone and order his. But I think I was ordered 4 or 5 in the Kickstarter backer numbers. So I was definitely invested very early on. From there, I actually had a meeting with Tom and Jared, the two co-founders of Biopod, and that was about 6 to 8 months after the initial launch of the Kickstarter. And Jared actually ended up talking to me about a potential job, but he didn't really specify me. He just said, hey, we want somebody like you that has plant knowledge and reptile knowledge to join the team. I was kind of sitting there like, well, me, duh. Actually, about a whole year later, at the end of this school year, Jared called me up for an interview, and now I work for them. It went from just a supporter of Kickstarter to actually working with the company, and that is why I have this tank here today. So I hope you guys enjoy the setup. I hope you can kind of understand what my background is with Biopod and enjoy the setup for Striker. Now that you've heard my story about Biopod and how I've come to know them, now we can go over all the materials that I'm going to be using in this build, starting off with some of the hardscape products. We have a cork bark sheet here that I'm going to be breaking and using for hides and things like that. There's a ton of different succulents that I decided. I'm definitely not going to use them all in this setup, but I hope to use most of them. There is this roof backdrop tile thing. I don't know what it is exactly, but you can find it at Home Depot, and this is what is going to be used for the living wall. Then we have Eco Earth as part of our substrate mix. You can see excavator back there. There is a red rock. I really wish I would have picked more of these up, but that was the only one at the pet store. We have a little mixing tub under there. And we have organic topsoil and play sand for our mixture. Of course, the most important feature and the thing that is making this all possible is the Biopod. Right now, I'm going to get started on working on this bad boy. You can see their little stainless steel wire, essentially. And how I'm going to be attaching the background is folding these in half, so you get kind of a hook. That was a terrible fold, not anywhere near center. But then when you have your the mat or whatever you're mounting in there, you're sticking it in and it hooks on the 45-degree angle here and will hold any and all plants or substrate or whatever that you are keeping in your background. So that is something that is very important for this step. I don't know exactly how well this carpet is going to come out, but that is the main way you're going to be attaching the living wall to the background. It's going to be tough. I know this mat is not ideal for this. It tends to fall apart a little bit, but it's been done before, and I certainly plan on doing it right now. At this point, I'm just going to put a layer of paper towel on the bottom of the tank here, so I have a little less cleanup when all's said and done. I decided I'm actually going to do an experiment with this tank. What I'm going to do in this build is going to be an experiment. I'm going to do half filled with coconut core, and then half just with the actual cactus pad, I guess, whatever you want to call it, the living wall portion stuffed into the little cells. So what that's going to allow me to do is kind of see the difference between, okay, this side's doing way better, this side's doing way worse, they're about the same, or vice versa, you know. So that's what I'm going to try. It's going to be an experiment, and it's going to take me even longer now to get all the coconut core set in here. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any footage from the other half of the Biopod. All I really did was cut the mat into certain squares that will fit into those little rectangles that you see in the back wall and push them into place. Simple, easy, and that is definitely the way that I recommend setting this up for your animals at home. And we're back, you guys. This back wall has taken quite some time to set up. It took me about an hour to get everything in there. Out of the 2 ways that I explained earlier, I did a coconut core, so I filled the bottom with coconut core, as you can see there, and then I pinned the mats to the back, and then this side I just cut them out of the carpet that they came in and just stuck them individually into each little compartment. That side is much easier to do, and I feel like it's going to stay in there a lot better, but this side allows for more root growth and will eventually attach either way. So both sides have their benefit. Now that we've talked about the background a little, we can talk about the false bottom and your cables. So the cables that come with this, you'll have 3 cables total. You'll have this blue one, you'll have this one with the silver tip on the side, and then you'll have this black one which goes under the false bottom, and that's actually your ventilation heating. So if you live in a very cold climate, the ventilation that is being blown in is actually warmed up before it hits your tank. The blue thing here is actually a heat cable, so this will be generating the basking spot, the heating area for Striker, as well as whatever animals you have. Now, there is part of it back here, you guys can't really see it, but that part, there's a little kind of knob on it that you'll see. It's a thin cable, a knob, and then another cable. And that, after that knob, is the heating portion. So what will be heated on my tank is from there all the way through the cable over to here. The next important part to mention, typically the substrate heating cable goes under the false bottom here. In most terrestrial tropical setups, it will be going under the false bottom. However, on the desert side of things, we want it to be a little bit warmer, so we put it on top. And that is where the screen window mesh comes in handy, because that will prevent whatever animal you have from digging too far and actually sitting on the cable. Now, on places like his basking spot or his hiding hole, I will actually have a more clay-based substrate covering it, so it will radiate heat well, but it won't be possible for him to dig all the way through and get down to this. Placement of your NTC sensor, so this is for the temperature. You'll be using this above the heating portion, but you need a layer of substrate there first. You don't want this to come in direct contact because you'll have a completely wrong heat rating and your heat cable will never turn on. So what you want to do is put a little layer of substrate, and I'll show you guys this more in detail afterwards. You're going to have this sitting above in the substrate, not on top. That's something you have to keep in mind. The next step that I'm going to be doing right now is actually filling the gap up front here. I'm going to push these back a little bit and remove the window screen, and then put a layer of sand in front here, just so that you can't see these false bottoms, and then it will go all the way along the side and along that side. As you can see, I filled all 3 sides with the play sand. They're compressed down. Now that we have the base concept down, it's time to play around with the substrate. First substrate we're going to be mixing is the humidity substrate. This substrate consists of 2 parts sand, 3 parts coconut fiber, 3 parts organic potting soil, 1 part carbon. This is primarily for the custodians that go in your tank. It's not going to be where my leopard gecko is residing. The second substrate, which is the clay-based substrate, is where the leopard gecko is going to spend most of his time. So I don't really have to worry too much about what goes in this part. It's more to fuel the custodian side of the bioactive vivarium rather than the apex predator that you're putting in your vivarium. And now we have this one finished. This is the humid stuff right here. It does clump together, but it breaks apart very easily. So it's going to be very nice and earthy and rich. That is what we're looking for in the human mixture for the custodians, because that's going to be where they're spending most of their time. Now that we're finished off with the tropical/human mix, now we can move on to the clay-based mix, which consists of 1.5 parts sand, 1.5 parts organic topsoil, and then I did about 4.5 parts of the Zoomed excavator clay substrate. Now what you're going to want to do is mix it all up and then have it get hydrated so that you get that nice clayey texture that you get from the red clay that is found in the excavator. So that's what we end up with. This is obviously a little bit hydrated. As you can see, I can form nice clumps in it. What I'm actually going to do is use this texture. I might add a little bit of water to it, but I'm going to use primarily this texture to add to the tank, and then I'm going to moisten it and mist it in the tank. Now that we're done with the substrates, we can move on to the hardscape. The hardscape is going to comprise of the rocks and the cork bark that you see here, and those are going to be used for the main hides for the leopard gecko. So there's going to be a couple on the cold side, a couple on the warm side, and they're just going to be used for little dig outs, hides, tunnels, that kind of deal. Then we have a whole bunch of succulents that will also be used in the tank. Not necessarily all of them, but definitely quite a few of them. There is a ton of different succulents here, and now it's just the time to mess around, see what fits where you can put this, where you can put that. Now that we've gone over all the hardscape elements, that being our rocks and our cork bark, there's only a couple pieces of each. I have 3 different rocks and 2 different pieces of cork bark at my disposal. So I'm going to be messing with these, seeing how they work with the background, seeing how they work with the tank as a whole, and then we're going to start adding substrate, making sure things fit where they're supposed to fit, all that kind of deal. Let's get started. During this creative process, you want to take your time. This takes time, it takes patience, and it takes a little bit of, I guess, knowledge and creativity to create the proper tank that you're going to be looking for. You're going to want to have plenty of hiding holes. You're going to have a basking spot for them, so you want to have a little bit that's a little bit higher for the animal to get up towards the UV light. And it's very crucial that you have that just so they can get some exposure. So you have to play with different depths, different structures, everything like that while doing this process. Now that I've established a little bit of what I'm looking for in this setup, what I'm going to do now is start adding the humid substrate, which is going to be the base layer of substrate. That is where you're going to want to make sure that you're not covering the NTC sensor that you see right here. You want to make sure this is left unexposed, and then it can be put back down on top. So I'm going to start filling in the warm side first, get that all figured out, and this is going to be more or less the whole setup of the tank right now. I'm going to be adding in the substrate layers, the humid hide, the like the basking spot. We're going to have a lot of stuff going in right now. So this video is already getting kind of long. I'm going to actually set it into time lapse. I'm going to get you a more or less whole view of the tank, and then we'll be off to the races. We'll come back after I'm done setting everything up and talk about it. For our NTC sensor here, I'm going to place that now because this is the lowest point that I'm going to have. This place right here is Striker's new kind of cool side and humid hide setup. So I'm actually have this leaf that I'm going to put under there, so it makes it a little more comfortable for him so that he can go under there and seek refuge. However, at the moment, this is where I'm going to be dumping my tub of springtails. So I'm just gonna throw them in there, and that will soak into the substrate. The springtails will go and do their thing. And secondly, I will add some isopods as well. So I'm going to add a couple different species of isopods in here. I'm going to put my larger guys in here along with some of the smaller ones. So these are the Trachylepis rathkai that are going in there now. As you can see, they're quite large. Hopefully you don't run all the way out. Put that back for them. And then on the other side, I'm going to put brown isopods. And that is now the bioactivity for this tank. I might add some more bioactive features later on, potentially some superworms and some superworm beetles. There's a couple things that I might add to this tank, but right now you can catch a couple of them just kind of running around here. These are the brown isopods. I put some in the back there as well, and they're doing very well. So that wraps up the build, you guys. I will do an update in about a month or so when I have everything set up and Striker is actually going in here. I have to let this all cure because as you can see right now, it's quite wet. I'm going to let it dry out a little bit in here because I don't want Striker to go in something super humid. It might help him shedding once a month, but right now it is not what he needs. I made a spot for him if he really wants to get a lot of UV, because the UV is directly above that rock. I hope you guys had a great time and kind of learned a little bit about the Biopod and how I started working with Biopod. It's been a long journey. The global launch is actually July 17th, so that's when they should be in stores, and you guys can go pick one up for yourselves. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, leave them in the comment section. I will do my best to go through and answer any questions that you guys have. If I'm not allowed to answer, unfortunately, I won't answer. I'll make up some reply for you guys. I'll definitely have to talk to my bosses and things and just make sure all is peachy keen. So I want to thank you guys all very much for watching. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, leave it in the comment section down below. And if you like the video, drop a like down below. If you like what you see here and you want to see more reptile, amphibian, plant-related videos in the future, definitely click that subscribe button and play Ding Dong Ditch with the doorbell right next to it. That'll notify you whenever I go live or post a video. So thanks for watching, you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.